Hello and welcome, guys. It's time for round 3 of Altibox Norway Chess. And the game I've chosen is Carlsen, the leader, against Aronian. The standings before the round looked as follows. And this is taken from Visual Chess. I will link to it in the description. There's a guy that has been putting up these nice visual representations of the tournament standings and how they have progressed so far. And so far quite easy. We only have one decisive game, so we see that Magnus took the lead in round 1 and sent Caruana to the bottom, and that's the way it has remained after round 2 because everybody drew the game. So Magnus leading almost all the field with 50%, and then Caruana trailing at the moment. So that's the situation before round 3. And we have Carlsen against Aronian. Incidentally, I only covered 2 games from the Blitz tournament, and we've had a rematch from those games. Carlsen against Caruana. Carlsen beating him again, and then Carlsen against Aronian, where he didn't do so well in the Blitz. He lost to the famous blunder H takes G4, which we might... Well, you can have a look at. I will link to it in the card and or the description. But let's move on to the game of the day between Carlsen and Aronian. Carlsen opened with E4. E5 from Aronian. And we have the Ruy Lopez, bishop to B5. Now, Aronian entering this tournament having lost some confidence and definitely lost some form. He was by many considered to have the best year in 2017. By many considered the favorite heading into the candidates, but then he had a bad tournament, faltered towards the end, and perhaps hasn't recovered his confidence. But at some point he will regain it. I mean, he's just too strong not to regain it. But for now, he's out of the top 10, which is just ridiculous. He was number 2 in the world not so long ago. But okay, Aronian goes for knight to f6. He wants to play the Berlin. White castles, and knight takes e4. Now, incidentally, we haven't seen the Berlin endgame for a while, which is after rook e1, which is the main move. Actually, d4. So rook e1 was played in the game, but of course, the famous Berlin endgame is d4 here. Knight d6, takes. And followed by this. And this is famous from the match between Kasparov and Kramnik, where Kramnik used this to dethrone one of the best players of all time. But here Carlsen plays rook to e1, knight to d6, and now instead of taking on c6, white takes on e5 with a knight. And of course you don't have time to take the free bishop on b5. We just briefly mention that. With the knight covering this, the queen is going to drop. So this is out of the question. And therefore, black plays bishop to e7 to block the e-file. Now white doesn't want to lose the bishop pair, so he will move the bishop now, bishop to f1. Get it out of the way. Rook e1 made this nice square for the bishop. It looks in a way undeveloping, but now that you've castled, the bishop is actually quite good on f1. And it will, bide its time and re-emerge when needed. Black now takes on e5. Rook takes e5. Castles. And after d4, bishop to f6. Gaining some time on the rook. And after the rook retreats, knight to f5. We're attacking this pawn here with 2 pieces. And c3 is the most common move to defend the pawn here. But the second most common move is d5. And this actually makes a lot of sense. This gains some space. So now instead of, if we go back, instead of playing c3, to me this is very drawish. I mean, it's completely symmetrical pawn structure and very hard to make something happen. This reminds me of the exchange French, where you will see pawn structure like this. Not much happening, and the piece configuration doesn't seem to white much. Okay, white has tried to play this for a little bit of an advantage, but it doesn't make for a very, very exciting game, if we're being honest. So d5 was played here. And Simon Uitestein, he speculated that Carlsen just decided on this. He'll play d5. He has a little bit of space advantage, and from there just play some chess. Rook e8 was played, challenging. Okay, black is basically with this line. Black is playing for a draw, so he wants to exchange rooks. White oblige. I mean, not much else to do. And regarding what Uitestein said, Carlsen actually, he said, I looked a little bit further, but Uitestein's point was good, that this is not very theoretical. You know, yesterday Carlsen played against Karakin. It was more theoretical, but now he just wants, you know, to get a solid slight edge and just play from there. Okay. Queen to d3. And this actually, there weren't a lot of games with this. Knight d2 had been played. Incidentally, in a game where Peter Heine Nielsen, Carlsen's second, had the black pieces, but okay, Queen d3 here. And now, okay, the knight is attacked. d6 is very logical. And okay, the only downside of this space scanning move d5 here is that, okay, black already has 2 pieces out. Queen is controlling this. Now he's ready to get the bishop out. So white is a little bit behind in development, but he will catch up pretty quickly. Knight to d2. Here, I have a feeling that black should be doing something, you know, finishing development, you know, bishop d7, maybe play c6. Because what Aronian did here, he played bishop to g5. And yeah, we just mentioned that black has more pieces out, but after bishop g5 and knight to f3. Okay, now white has gotten the knight to a much better square, and after bishop takes c1, I mean, he didn't have to develop the bishop. Black played bishop g5 takes c1, so white didn't have to develop the bishop, and now the rook is ready. So actually white is leading in development slightly now. I mean, he's ready to play rook e1, take the file. This hasn't developed, and white has kept the space advantage. So I think bishop g5 was perhaps a small inaccuracy, but enough for black to, I think, struggle a little bit in this game. Bishop d7 finally. Rook to e1, logical play, just taking the open file. Having said that, I mean, there isn't really an entry on the file, but nonetheless, this is very logical. Queen d8. Queen to c4. Okay, the queen has, I mean, there's mobility. You can go to either wing. And you're eyeing the c7 pawn. It's not much of a factor, but Carlsen, you know, he builds up, you know, slowly but surely. g6, now h3, a quiet move. And this is not so much about setting Luft as it is about protecting g4 when you maybe played g4. But it's always good to get Luft. But in this case, it's very hard to imagine black ever, you know, doing anything on the back rank. Aronian went knight to g7, and now rook e3. So a lot of these nice little, you know, positional quiet moves. h3, you know, prepares g4, rook e3. The rook is more mobile here. I mean, if you want, you can swing it over to b3, a3, or c3, depending on what you want. So this is more, you know, improving the rook slightly. It's more mobile. If you want to do something on the queen side, it's better on e3. Also, the queen might, you know, drop to e2, and now you have a battery on the e file with the queen behind, which is usually better. Aronian tries to make something happen on the queen side, you know, trying to make a stand there. He's not attacking anything, he's just trying to, you know, stop white's plans. And Carlsen plays a4. Maybe he was worried about black playing a4 because the pawn would be well covered by a bishop and the rook if it gets there. And it would stop the rook from doing anything on the queen side. But for now, white is just maintaining the space advantage. Knight to e8. Queen d4. We all remember how great the queen was centralized on d4 in the game against Caruana. So a little bit of a flashback of the queen there. knight g7, and now g4. To me, this is logical. Carlsen mentioned he found this logical, and he thought that Aronian thought this was asking too much of the position. But to me, I mean, you already have this pawn, and now you have this. And what both of them are doing is that they're taking away these squares from the knight. And he's sort of playing against the piece. I mean, he has a space advantage. This bishop already, not a lot of prospects, right? It's blocked by white's pawns. Now, same thing for the knight. Doesn't have a lot of squares. So Carlsen is, you know, maintaining and nurturing the, you know, the space advantage. Aronian now tries to break on the queen side with c6, but c4, keeping everything under lock and key. Now you don't want to play c5, it's just too ugly of a move. I mean, white will have you know, too much on going on the queen side and the king side. We can have a quick look, like c5. I think queen f4, and then you're threatening to put the queen here, followed by knight g5. Yeah, this is already hanging. I mean, black doesn't have any prospects here, and this is not in Aronian style. So he plays knight e8. I must admit, I do not fully understand where he's going here, because, yeah, maybe, well, of course I do. I mean, he wants to improve the knight. Maybe, I don't know, maybe here, but it wasn't doing anything on g7, that's for sure. But queen f4 and king g7. So white is ready, kind of ready on both wings. The queen, okay, it is protecting the pawn indirectly if you take on d5. Just take back, and the queen is protecting. And white can, you know, create threats on the king side and also on the queen side, which is what happens now with rook to b3. Attacking this, rook b8, passive rook, and now knight to g5. And here, yeah, this is the final mistake. I mean, I think we can criticize bishop g5. From there, no, like, real mistake, but here I cannot understand why it doesn't go queen f6. I mean, you're being pressed, white has a space advantage, and queen f6, okay, you're offering the trade. Queen, maybe, you know, the queen goes back, maybe you start playing h6. And at least, I mean, you're fighting. Your pieces are bad and passive, but maybe you're alive. However, in the game, Aronian played knight to f6. And now next move basically wins for white, but even the second best move, just taking the pawn, seems excellent for white. But Carlsen had a stronger move, and he found it. He played rook to f3. And the pressure here is just unbearable. And the point will be revealed after h6, which looks natural, kicking the knight away, but now knight to e4. This is, you have to do something about the pressure here, so exchange, but Carlsen is not taking back. He's taking on f7. And after king h8, queen takes on g6, this game is over and Aronian resigned. The thing is, there are too many threats. Okay, if nothing else, I can take, come back, and then pick up this guy. I also have ideas of rook f7, which threatens mate on g7 or h7 with queen or a rook, or queen takes h6 in case of queen g8. So probably the best that black can do is something like queen g5, but then we just take on e4 and roll the 2 pawns up, and for a world champion that is more than enough. So a very convincing win by Carlsen. Unfortunately, Aronian still doesn't seem like himself, but you know, let's not take anything away from Carlsen. I mean, these 3 games, it looks like he might be re-entering God mode. He's now up to 2850 on the live rating. The highest he's been in a while. And yeah, with all the other games, yeah, he now has a nice lead. I don't want to maybe spoil some of the other games if I have a look at them, but Carlsen is looking good here with +2 already after 3 rounds. And some nice statistics for him. If I can pronounce statistics. Some statistics. He actually, the last 5 tournaments that he started with +2, he won all of them. So looking very promising. Can anybody catch up? We'll have to wait and see. But for now, I'm checking out. Please like and show some support by subscribing if you haven't. And I will see you later. Bye bye.